Welcome to Quantum Conversations, where we explore the energetics of healing, from frequencies to metaphysics, technology to astrology, from science to nature. Everything is energy, even you. My mission is to help you feel empowered to take your health back into your hands. My hope is that you will open your heart and your mind to a universe full of possibilities and join me for this healing exploration. Let's discover a new dimension of wellness together. Please note the information provided in this podcast, Quantum Conversations, is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Today, I'm chatting with my friend, Keri Nola, and this conversation has been a long time coming. I've been following Keri's work for several years, and she is one of the few coaches that I recommend working with because she actually practices what she preaches and truly embodies her teachings. Keri is often referred to as the Queen of Abundance or the Shadow Mama by her clients. Her superpower is illuminating healers' gifts by helping them harmonize, structure, and flow. After over a decade of growing a prosperous practice as a licensed psychotherapist, she retired from clinical work and expanded into the realms of best-selling author, podcaster, and founder of the Abundance Activator for Healing Entrepreneurs. Today, she has a global practice mentoring healers through products, programs, retreats, events, and experiences as they transmute the energies of fear and doubt and step into their power and serve abundantly. If you are a healer struggling with activating abundance for yourself or your business, if you're curious about somatic healing work, if you're considering adding a business mentor to your life, or if you just like listening in on two healers talking all things energy, this episode is for you. Well, welcome, Keri, to the Quantum Conversations podcast. I am so excited to have you here. You and I have known each other for a little over a year now, I think almost 2 years now. And I have loved watching you in your work, watching your work evolve. I find your background so interesting and sort of the juxtaposition of where you are now. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you transition from psychotherapy to abundance activation coaching?
Well, thank you for having me, Stef. I'm so excited for this conversation. I feel like it's been a long time coming, but right on time as usual. So when I was little, I always knew that I would do something in the helping world. I didn't know what the options were. I thought at one point I might be a teacher. I used to sit at my parents' kitchen table and do you remember the show Rescue 911? I used to pretend like I was a 911 operator and be like, what's your emergency? I was always good in crisis and figuring things out. So I landed in psychotherapy and realized that trauma healing came very naturally to me. I felt my system was very calm, very grounded, very capable of holding that the energy that's really required to walk someone through a really dark time. And without much effort on my part, it was like God sent me the women primarily that needed that type of support, and my referral relationships were really steeped in that trauma healing world. But over time, what I came to discover was that a lot of the traditional training that I had and the things that insurance would reimburse for, which by the way, I never took insurance because I'm not one for answering to a system that I sense is well-meaning but broken in a lot of ways. And I wanted that freedom and liberation to be with another human being and be able to do what worked, not have to answer to a third party that wasn't even in the space with us. And just discovering that a lot of those traditional tools, techniques, while they had value sometimes and in on one hand, on the other, there was just so much more that was available. And after about over a decade of practice, I retired my license and began mentoring and supporting other therapists, coaches, and healing entrepreneurs in what always came quite easily to me, which was attracting the clients that were meant for me and being of service without selling myself out or without being in
Mm-hmm.
scarcity myself. And that's just continuing to evolve over time. It's looked different. I started a bit more traditional and strategic, and now I'm super energetic and quantum and grounded in, the strategy when needed, but also knowing that at the core, the quality of energy that we're working from and working with always fuels any strategy that we have. So strategy without energetic awareness just tends to fall flat.
Yes. Oh, that right there is a soundbite in itself. I love that. So, what in particular do you think is missing from psychotherapy that you use now with your clients?
Well, I think collectively, the consciousness of psychotherapy really assumes pathology or sickness or, um, you know, disease and all the diagnoses, while they can be helpful in guiding an approach to supporting someone, I think they bring a power differential. They forget that the client is the healer. They, yeah, just disempower, I find, the client, and not necessarily the individuals themselves. The therapists are all well meaning, but the collective consciousness is such that one is watching over or doing something to someone else. And in a lot of ways, it's just incredibly limiting. And for me, the only diagnosis that really exists is our disconnection from the divine. And
Yes.
that manifests itself in a lot of different diagnoses and, symptoms. And for me, I just needed to step out of that consciousness in order to see more clearly what is true, that we are all capable, we are all whole. And with the right support and acknowledgement of that, if someone's sitting before you and they don't see your wholeness, or they're colluding with the notion that you're broken or diseased, or that you can't heal, or that you have to just manage symptoms, that's not going to lend itself to real and true healing. That's
Hmm.
going to keep you sick. That's going to keep you unwell. So for me, it is what I do differently now is first hold the consciousness of truth around our wholeness, around our enoughness, and around our job as healers and helpers being to remind others of that, and to help them to find that healing energy and capacity within themselves and the resources that help that all come back online.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you said earlier about like the diagnoses and really the labeling.
Yeah.
Um, how do you see that playing into like further dividing us and disconnecting us, not only from each other, but from the divine? Because what I see kind of evolving and happening, especially in like these last few years, is this like identity construct
Yeah.
around labeling.
Yeah.
Like, well, I am this now, I am my diagnosis. And does that hinder or help someone from being able to fully heal?
Beautiful and so nuanced. I think it's yes and right. It depends on where we are in our level of development and consciousness. At the beginning levels, like in order to heal something, we have to acknowledge that it's there. We have to say, hey, this is happening. I'm hurting. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I am, sick. I have parasites. I have a gut issue. I have whatever it is. We have to take some level of ownership and like acknowledgement. And that's like stage one healing. but if we never evolve from stage one healing, we continue to maintain that vibration and we limit our capacity to expand beyond that. So over identifying with anything beyond the acknowledgement of it's here, it's real to some level, and I want to evolve through that or beyond that, that's where the over identification becomes a challenge. And a lot of people I find use that as a crutch. It's very easy to get stuck in a victim consciousness, um, un, unconsciously often, but there's a lot of rewards in our world for being something or having something. And I think it really just, it's about coming into right relationship with our power. Yes, I may have or be experiencing something. Like one of my mentors, for example, a brilliant man in the healing world, Dr. Donnie Epstein, who created network spinal analysis. He's incredible. And when I went to an event with him, someone sitting on a chiropractic table next to me had cancer. And he said, "Oh, you're cancering. You're cancering." And I thought that's so beautiful. Like instead of I have cancer, I am cancer. This is me. I can't get rid of it. I can't be separate from it. It was like you're going through an experience in
Yep.
this moment. And that experience can evolve. It can change. You can welcome something different. But before that change can happen, we have to say, this is happening. This is here now. And I claim something different.
Yes. Yeah. And you touched on the fact that it is like a frequency, an energy that you are experiencing. And if you truly dive into what energy and frequency is, that's where our emotions come from. Like our emotions are not tangible. We can't see them. Like if you really ask yourself, where does this come from? Yeah, there's some chemical reactions in your hormones happening. But in order for us to truly evolve from these diagnoses, from these labels that we have been given, to me, understanding the energetics of it and the frequency, the vibration of it is what can help to open your mind, open your capacity to learn how to transcend from that.
100%.
So, do you think energy healing and frequency technology, which we'll talk about more later, has a place in psychotherapy in the future?
Absolutely. If we want real healing, it must. We have to evolve in that direction. I think the field of psychotherapy is incredibly masculine. It's incredibly focused on the mind, and as the feminine has more of a place and space, returning to the value of the feminine, the value of intuition and receptivity and nourishment and feeling and knowing beyond like evidence-based strategy, that I think will reawaken the value of energy. But right now there's a bit of I think an awakening is happening, but it's just so far from, and also really not conducive to the systems. It's not, for people to get off medication, it's like that doesn't really help the pharmaceutical companies. For people to get well, who is benefiting from the wellness, right? Who is benefiting from the sickness? And so, absolutely. And it's just what's true, right? What someone thinks is true and what's actually true are two different things. The truth never changes. Vibration is vibration. Everything vibrates at a frequency. And when that frequency changes, something new happens. It's just period facts. Like, so
Yep.
people can doubt it. They can be unsure of it. It's really been demonized, I think, so that these other systems can benefit and can grow. But I feel like we're waking up. One of my other soapboxes, I just don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but just to name, I hate when they call energy work new age. It's like, no,
Right.
this is old age. This is original medicine. This is
Yes.
indigenous medicine. This is ancient medicine. And it's the
Yes.
future of medicine and of healing. And we've been confused, we've been distorted, and we're returning, I think.
Yes, we're coming back to it. That's what I was just saying in my head. We are returning to it. We're coming back to it.
Yeah.
Because I think I've been thinking a lot about the lack of ritual
Mhm.
and the lack of ceremony
Yeah.
in our society. And we used to have these dedicated times in our
Mhm.
life when we would go through this dark shadow period to face our demons. And now, with the busyness and the constantly doing rather than being, we're not giving ourselves that time to really take a look at the energies that we are experiencing, because we're just in this like survival mode, right? Um, so, what do you think people can do, or what are you using in your practice to help people tap into these energies and come to terms with them, but then also move beyond them?
One is awareness, just like, hey, this is where we've been. This is where we have the opportunity to go. Um, can you choose that? You know, it is about a choice. We are co-creating our experience, like it or not. And the more we take responsibility for that, the more we acknowledge that. So in my community, you know, first and foremost, there's an agreement. There's a personal responsibility that I require that all of the members of my community take in order to engage in this work, because otherwise it's usually not going to happen. I remember studying with Dr. Ann Drake when I didn't complete a doctoral program, but I started one in holistic theology, and I was studying with this woman who was trying to bring Eastern healing philosophy and medicine into Western culture. And she said the things that work in the Amazon and in these other cultures are not working here in the same way. And she was studying why. And she was discovering that it's because our beliefs are so like dense and so heavy, not only personally, but collectively, which is the
Yes. Yeah.
beauty of, as each of us wake up and each of us realize what's possible, we begin to change it for each other. So, for example, in some cultures, when someone has a wound or an illness, you might blow on that area, and the breath would create a vibration and a frequency, and the tumor, the cyst, the cancer would leave the body. But in our
Mm,
culture, you imagine doing that, and it's like, are you nuts? Like, you
right.
lost it. Like, we need to put them away. Like, no. So I was fascinated by that. So in my
Yeah.
community, we talk about like, yeah, are you open to something more and different? And I also require slowness. I'm under no illusion that these things happen fast. Like, we're deprogramming eons of material. And yes, healing can be miraculous and it can be quick. And we're in a very dense third dimensional reality right now that is evolving, and fourth dimension, you know, is here. But we have to be like true to what's
Hmm.
available and what's happening. So I ask for commitment and presence, and are you in the long game, you know, not looking for the quick fix or overnight success in your business or your body, because that doesn't necessarily occur like that.
Right. Yeah. I find it so interesting as you're talking about this. A Taylor Swift song comes to mind, actually. I find it so interesting that our society um, grasped onto one of Taylor Swift's songs last year that the lyrics were, "Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me." And I don't think that song would have been as popular even just a few years ago, let alone a decade ago. And actually gives me hope that people are willing to acknowledge that, like, we are the creators of our experience. We can do and be anything that we want, but we first have to make that commitment. We have to acknowledge that oftentimes we are the problem.
Yes. Personal responsibility, it beats it out. And I love, yeah, even just those lyrics going into our consciousness, whether people know what they're saying or it was just a catchy pop thing. It's like, it's reprogramming. It's
Right.
creating, it's planting a seed of like, hey, look at the common denominator here. It's not random that the same thing continues to happen
Hmm.
over and over. What if there is something that you can be or do different to have a change happen?
Yeah. Okay. So we will switch gears here just a little bit. moving into the abundance factor in your coaching, and abundance, I think people instantly go to money
Mhm.
when they think of that word. But what does abundance mean to you?
To me, abundance is the enoughness of life. It is letting life in. Like, how receptive are we to life? Truly, it's like abundance is like, how deeply do we let that inhale move all the way in and through and down our body to nourish us in preparation for that letting go in that exhale. And yeah, it's just an abundance is relating to the enoughness of life.
I love that. So beautiful. So, how can healing practitioners really specifically receive and serve abundantly in their practices?
Well, one is by knowing that that's possible. I think most healers are attracted to healing because they're accustomed to giving. Maybe in their family, they had to grow up very quickly and help or serve or, become adults early on. Um, Usually we have some type of wound that fuels our desire to help others, and then we're often out of balance. Like, there's not a harmony between yes and what do we get to experience in exchange for sharing that gift or that medicine with
Mhm.
another. So I think it really is understanding that our value isn't just in what we're giving, but it's also in letting ourselves open. And truly, it's like the slingshot metaphor. Like, the further you pull that back, the further it can travel. So the more deeply receptive you are, the more you can give, the more of a position you're in to share and to give.
Yes, absolutely. So, what are some of the biggest blocks to abundance that you are seeing healers experiencing and also overcoming in your group?
Mhm. The first is really the notion that it's greedy to want to receive. I think there's this idea, like in any other profession, you're not really going to hear a lawyer talk about, feeling bad for their retainer fee. You're not going to really hear, an executive say, that they're having a struggle, writing this contract for however many thousands or multi thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you hear healers all the time with, for example, a belief that says, I don't do it for the money. And I
Hmm.
remember I wrote an email years ago, and the subject line was, I do it for the money. And it was still to this day the most opened email I ever sent. I think it was a combination of like curiosity, and a lot of people were hating on it. They were like,
Hmm.
and I said, it's like, I didn't say I don't also do it because I deeply care and love, and this is why God put me here and all of those things. But people who don't do it for the money usually don't have any,
Hmm.
because they don't walk in the world as one who is worthy of having and worthy of receiving. And it's great to be a good healer, but if no one knows about your medicine and you're not serving it, then what's the value in that? So letting
Hmm.
ourselves, and they do go hand in hand. So another block is struggling to be seen, because being seen and being visible is required so that people know about our medicine. But it also requires being receptive to being received, to being noticed, to being seen. And I always say there's no faster route than entrepreneurship to wake up, where we don't feel worthy or good enough, or the spots that need our attention. So yeah, it like, I could give many examples of the blocks, but they really all come back to that one spot of like, is it okay? Is it safe for me
Yeah.
to receive in exchange for my service?
Yeah, and that because I had that for sure when I was acting as a emotion code practitioner in my energy healing business. It was this sense of what are people going to think of me because people don't even know or really believe in what this is.
Yeah.
Can I really be charging that much for this? And there's also this underwriting current of like, well, I want to serve the people who can't afford healing,
Yeah.
right? I want to serve the people. I want to make this affordable so that everyone can access this healing. And I don't know if you've experienced that with, some of your clients or not, but maybe speak to that. What is that actually saying when people are declaring that mindset?
It depends. There's a light and shadow of that mindset. It's
Mhm.
like, how can you actually do that if you don't have anything? If you're depleted, if you're not taken care of, if your basic needs aren't met, you're not actually available to serve those who need you, who aren't able to make a financial investment. So if it's true, I find that that's often a distortion or an excuse.
Mhm.
Because of course all of us want to help those who need help, period, whether they can afford the help or they can't afford the help. And it is true that some are not in a position to financially invest and they deserve help too. But how do we put ourselves in a position of actually being able to serve them? So a lot of times I'll just bring up another split that often healers have is we think of ourselves as healers, but not as business owners or entrepreneurs. And it is required if you want, if you're not, we're not running a charity. Like you can do that if you have financial means elsewhere, if a
Yep.
partner is backing you or you have, a fund somewhere. But if you're running a business, businesses make money. We need profits. We need to be, we can't be in the red and offer our help. So getting to know yourself as an entrepreneur. And when I work with people, I say, when someone asks you what you do, I want you to first say, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a business. And in that
Yeah.
business, I happen to be a healer or an energy worker or a practitioner of some sort, just to begin to bring both of those online.
Yeah, absolutely. That, as somebody who has a master's degree in marketing and business, when I stepped into the healer world, when I was looking for someone to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and you are also friends with Juliana, who is an emotion code and body code practitioner, I chose to work with Juliana because she had the most professional looking Instagram account,
Love it.
because she had the most professional looking website.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody that was brand new to energy healing and still had a bunch of blocks and boundaries around, like, I'm not sure about this yet. I know it's something that I need to do. I was not going to work with somebody that looked like a wizard or a witch online.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the new era that is unfolding, is of this professionalism in the energy healing space. That it is this both and, like you keep saying both and yes, and it is both and. We can be a healer and a professional business person at the same time, right?
Absolutely. And we must to be
Yes.
successful, not in like traditional terms, but in actually getting the work out there. And also, that's a great thing, knowing your audience, right? It's like
Mhm.
if you're working with people who are super woo, they're already there, fine, have your hair a million colors and do your thing. And that's great. But if you're serving people who might be a little skeptical or unsure, or you're one that is bridging the gap between here and there,
Yep.
you need to know that, and you need to be that and express as that so your people can hear you.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Because this is something that I think maybe is coming up for a lot of people. It's the beginning of the year, it's the beginning of 2024. People are, healers are probably taking new steps in their businesses. They are wanting to maybe do things differently or evolve. What have you found is typically happening in a healer's mind when they don't know what they want, when they don't know what that next best step is for them?
Yeah. That lack of clarity can be so painful because we just have such a deep desire and really requirement on our heart, on our soul to serve. And when we're not doing that, it can be it's so disappointing and such a despair. I know for me at different seasons, right before I broke into like that next layer of service, that in between of like, I know I'm meant to do this. Am I meant to do this? And I think that's it, a deep questioning. They have this call, but like nothing's manifesting in physical reality yet, or it's not manifesting to the degree that they desire or thought they envisioned. And so now doubt creeps in. And when
Mm-hmm.
doubt gets in the driver's seat, it really keeps us from being able to listen for the steps that would move us in that direction. And that's when I say, doing this alone is really challenging, because you're just sitting there with your own distortions, your own illusions, your own doubts, and you just move yourself into a spiral really fast. So,
Yep.
and oftentimes people around us are often scared. Just get a regular job already. Like, what if you can't make it? It's not paying off. It's taking a long time. Sometimes becoming who we are and doing what we're here to do takes a while. It's not always, we see these Instagram accounts or these Facebook things or these TikToks and reels. It's like somebody like hit it overnight. No, that person has been in their basement or their garage or their spare room doing the thing a lot longer than this moment when they arrived here, on your screen.
Yep.
But
Yep.
nobody wants to show that part. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. There's nothing worse right now than the comparison that happens online.
yes.
And that's a big boundary that I have had to set for myself and this like mental awareness as well. So let's talk about boundaries for a second, because you are one of the only people that I know who truly honors and maintains their boundaries in such a beautiful way. This is something that I watch you do and I
Aw.
try to mirror from you. And boundaries can feel restrictive
Mhm.
to some people rather than expansive.
Yep.
So, how has your experience of abundance changed since you started creating boundaries for yourself?
Whew, game changer, right? And I think I just want to say, oftentimes what people are actually doing is creating armor that they're calling boundaries. Armor doesn't
Mm-hmm.
let things in or out. It's like a shield. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, depending on our histories, feeling like we need to protect ourselves from the world, from others, from danger, we don't feel safe in our body, in our life, in our nervous system. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust each other. Like, that armoring has to be dismantled in order to truly create boundaries, which is really just a sacred perimeter that says, you know, I will be treated a certain way. And this is allowed in and this is allowed out. And we have to know what those perimeters are and make choices according to that. And that helps us to actually feel safe to receive. If you
Yeah.
think about it in terms of a relationship, if you know, I'm not available to be spoken down to, I'm not available to be physically injured, I'm not available. And if you're both on the same page about that, then you can relax and just receive and enjoy each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're on guard, you're not actually receptive.
Yep.
So I think boundaries that we know about and set and are feel worthy of establishing and communicating, and those are communicated verbally, but they're often also communicated energetically. Like, people
Yeah.
don't mess with you; they just walk the other way. Like, and a boundary phrase that I have is, I'm not available for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we walk in the world and that emanates from our system, and they'll just find somebody else who is available for that, and they'll bring
Yes.
those shenanigans over there. um,
Yeah.
we find that a lot in our business, as far as how boundaries relate to receptivity and abundance. Is also like, when someone challenges you on your fees, it's like, that doesn't happen for me anymore. It did at the beginning because I was available for it. I wasn't
Yep.
sure if I was worth it, or and I also have a problem with that when people say charge what you're worth. I just want you to know, you can't actually do that, because you're priceless.
Right.
So your fee has nothing to do with your worth. It has to do with the exchange of energy that you're offering, and making sure that that's in right alignment with who you are and what you're doing. Not everyone pays me the same thing, because we're not all the same, and the amount of energy that I have to invest or that someone else has to invest to unlock the healing code is different. So I work
Mm-hmm.
from an intuitive pricing model, and it's just true to what's happening in the moment. I know
Yeah.
I've gone on a tangent here, but one thing opens another, and I feel like it's all right.
Right. Right. So how has abundance changed for you since creating those boundaries for yourself?
I feel safer to receive more without doing more. I just said this
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. I was talking to a few clients this year who were looking at their income and saying, wow, like I made more, but I worked less. Wow, I made more, but I spent more time with my family. I made more, but I feel healthier and better and focused on my wellness. Wow, I made more and I really didn't even like hustle or try. And I think that's what happened for me. Like when I set boundaries on my time, on my energy, on my attention, I felt safe to just relax. And relaxation is one of the codes for receiving more. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
relaxed, if you think of trying to like put food in your mouth, but your like jaw is closed, it's not going to go
Mm-hmm.
that well. If you're
Yep.
not relaxed, there's not room to let it in. So my income has, I've watched it just continue to improve and increase, not only, and also my health has improved and
Mm-hmm.
increased, the quality of my relationships, being able to welcome a meaningful relationship in the last year in my life, which has been an intention.
Yep.
But I had to be willing to work less to have time and space in my life for that. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel and see that correlation.
I think that's the ultimate goal. That's what we all are striving for right now. And that's, we're seeing, when we're looking at Instagram or online, we're seeing all these other people achieve it. And we're asking ourselves, well, like, how is that possible for me? Because we've been stuck in these programs of, I have to work harder in order to achieve more. And the exact same thing has happened for me in the last several years.
Yeah.
I am working less. I am setting more boundaries around what my day looks like, and I am earning more.
Yes.
And that equation like does it, the math like doesn't compute for some people. And sometimes it really takes you experiencing it just
Yes.
even a little bit. And so that would be my challenge to any practitioners or healers that are listening is, for me, it wasn't about setting all of the boundaries at once, because that can be more of like an armor, but having the discipline to just choose one small boundary. And for me, that was like, I am going to meditate first thing in the morning rather than hopping into emails
Yes.
and answering messages online.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was, okay, now I'm also going for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, it was, okay, now I'm also doing some stretching or exercising. And next thing you know, I have this like 2 to 3 hour window in the morning
So good.
that's just for me.
Right.
And all of the work is still getting done.
It's amazing how
Right.
that happens. When we're well, we also vibrate at a higher frequency, so we can accomplish more in less time. Other people also feel that. Like that's a field that you want to walk toward. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was creating my deck of Oracle cards, I worked with a product mentor, and she had just sold her company, I think, for $50 million. And so she didn't need my money for this mentorship session. And it was so beautiful to just feel. She had no desperation. I had to ask her, like, how do I pay you? And she was like, oh, yeah, there's a link on my site. Just hop on over. And it was the first time I felt someone, and you don't have to have $50 million in the bank to have that experience. You need to
Mm-hmm.
feel well nourished, whatever that means for you. Like,
Yep.
do I have a roof over my head? Have I eaten today?
Yeah.
Did I
Actually eating
have time?
breakfast.
Right. Did I have time for myself? Like, did I meditate? Did I move? Whatever your practices are, did I have space for that? And then
Mm-hmm.
you're actually available, your nervous system. A lot of times this is where the energetics come into business building too, is we don't have room for more. So it can't come in. If you don't have room for it, it's like you want a new couch, but the old couch is still sitting there with no intention of getting rid of it. It's like, get the couch out so there's room for the new couch to come in. Um,
Yep.
you know, open space in your nervous system so that when that client calls, you don't feel like taking on one more client is going to bust you at the seams. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I have room. I'm available.
Yeah. So, how are healers abandoning themselves and betraying themselves in ways that may not be obvious to them?
Mm.
What do you typically see happening?
One of the ways I see this most commonly is scheduling. Like they let external factors determine their day or their reality. So they kind of talk themselves out of doing what they want and let themselves be led by external requests or sources.
Hmm.
Um, that's a big way of abandoning self or letting external realities determine your fees. So, for example, if someone calls and you state your fee and they say, well, I can't do that, and then you wobble and waver, like we abandon ourselves when we don't know where we stand.
Hmm.
Your power is like, I am immovable in my truth, in my needs, my wants, my way, and not in an immature like it has to be my way, but like this is what I need to show up fully and completely, and anything else is an abandonment of that. Another way, um, in my shadow card deck, there's the power card says, remember that minimizing who you are and what you have to offer is also an abandonment of your power. And I think that's one that they don't realize. We think of abuse
Mm.
of power is like abusing somebody or like being aggressive or coming at somebody. And most healers, yeah, they might do that occasionally or have that pattern, but most of the time they're abusing their power by not using it,
Yep.
by not standing in it, by playing small, by not being in right relationship with their bigness and what they have to
Mhm.
offer. And minimizing it is a misuse of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have recently expanded your services and found the capacity to offer even more to
Yeah.
people. You recently added a new service to your offerings, aerial somatics. You
Yes.
have a beautiful space for this. So
Yeah.
help our listeners visualize what is aerial somatics? What is involved in the experience? Um, yeah, let's go there first. Let's wrap our
Yes.
heads around it.
So imagine a beautiful piece of silk, a gold silk cocoon suspended from the ceiling that you get to lay in and rock in and be held in for deep relaxation, reprogramming of the nervous system, practicing surrender, expanding, moving in ways that you can't move with gravity or in any other position. um, I came to discover how important the body is in our capacity to hold more and to do this abundance work. And that's why I added it, because the body can't be left out of the process. And when I'm working virtually, I can include it, and I do, with somatic experiencing practices and breath work and energy, and like the physical body has to get the download as well. And so this is one of the ways that I get to offer that.
That's awesome. So, what all is involved in the experience, and why did you choose this as a practitioner?
Yeah. Well, I chose it like I choose everything else. Either it chooses me or I've had the experience personally and I
Hmm.
know I have an embodied experience of, wow, this works. This helped me and I'm embodied in this. And so I'm in a position to offer it physically, but also as a transmission to others. So I've been doing aerial somatic work myself for several years. I have a swing in my home through COVID when you know, personal connection and touch was limited and we weren't getting out and about. I got out and about a little more quickly than most people, but before we knew what the hell was going on, I was using the swing to take care of myself and to feel nourished and held. So that's why I started offering it, because I know that it works. And when someone comes to my space, I curate a playlist of music that I know is aligned with their intention. So often that intention is clarity or relaxation or surrender, or like the next version of themselves coming online, like they feel that. And so they lay in the swing, and I rock and move and push and twist and very gently engage with their body and their nervous system to help uh, the lymph system move, to help the fascia system open and move. So imagine it like a cross between a massage and a deep, like, sound healing or meditation.
Mm.
That's like the way you might feel afterwards. And I love it too, because some healing modalities, when you are done with them, you're not integrated. Like, you have to do more to integrate it. And we're always anchoring and integrating. But this, it's like healing and integrating at the same time. So
Mm.
afterwards, like, you step out, we call it a rebirth from the cocoon, and you feel relaxed. You feel like more of you. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds so beautiful and immersive, and relaxing, and sort of that one-on-one private experience as well, where these last few years we have been seriously lacking physical touch
Yeah.
from other human beings. And as somebody who works from home, I'm by myself all day long, and my husband gets home and I'm like, hold me.
My man calls me a koala. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Um, so what is your definition of somatic healing? Because I feel like everybody's using that term
Yeah.
right now and not necessarily meaning it the same way.
Yeah. Including the body is, I think, the easiest way. It's presence with the body and the body's wisdom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So why is that so important for healers, or really anybody right now? To It almost feels like we're doing so much stuff. We're doing the energy stuff and we're doing the meditation stuff, but if somebody is not including the body part of it and moving their body or really feeling their body, do you feel like that's hindering them?
Absolutely, because that's the point of being in the human experience. The human experience has us in this vessel that we arrive with and we leave with. And it's the only thing that we're with 100% of the time. And oftentimes, because of trauma, because of wounding, we leave the body, we check out. So we have this body and it's walking around, but are we truly inhabiting it? And when we're not, that's often why things, disease and things come about to call us back home. Like, hey, you live
Mhm.
here. Where are you? Come home.
Yeah.
And one of my massage therapists I know said, like, the issues are in the tissues. And I loved that.
Yes.
And so for me, somatic work is also honoring the energetics. It's listening to the energy of the body. They're not different. They're
Yeah.
the same. Um,
I swear we're like thinking the same thoughts at the same time
I love it. We're on the wavelength of
during
truth.
this
Yeah, just
conversation.
like, yeah.
Because I was like, this is energetics. Like, this
Yeah.
is when you talked about it's moving the lymphatic system, it's moving the fascia. That is energetics, like the fascia of our body at a quantum level. And if you're familiar with Dr. Catherine Clinton, she talks about this a lot. Our fascia is made from crystalline, structured water. And if it is blocked, if it is stagnant and sticky, if it is dehydrated, if your lymphatic system is not moving, which is also a form of fluid flowing through our body, that is how energy gets stuck, because energy is communicated through structured water
Yes.
in our body. It's like a lightning network of fiber optic cables. And I would literally fly out to California to experience this with
Please do.
Keri. And I just might someday.
Yes. Lots of people are.
Because I think the aerial somatics piece is just so cool to me. I would love to experience that. And you have so many tools in your toolkit. You have your abundance coaching. You have this aerial somatics. You've also been a member of the AOScan community for quite a while now, and so what's your take on like incorporating these new frequency technologies in not just your work, but in your life, and how is it supporting you as a healer, supporting other people?
Yeah. Well, I think that we have to be well before we offer and hold space for someone else's wellness. So every day I'm waking up and using something from AOScan technology, whether it's my red light band or, putting on the Cephi dots or running frequencies or doing a scan or terahertz wanding my water. Like all of these things are incorporated because I understand that healing happens at the level of energy. That is first and foremost in my mind. And I'm so grateful for the different resources that help us to bring that to life and
Yep.
know that it's happening. And I love now, like my family and friends, like, hey, XYZ happened, can you send me some frequencies? My clients are asking now to incorporate them. I'm running them in the background of our sessions. I run them when I'm doing groups. I send them to my office before I get there. Like they're just an aspect of who I be now. And I can't imagine life. I'm like, how did I do life before this? And I mean, I'd love to share my story too of how I met you, Steph, because my
Yes.
relationship with AOScan, I've always been open to these technologies, but some of them are very expensive. And I think a lot of companies are not on the up and up and they're not using, um, like, they're not pure in their intentions or
Mhm.
integrity. So
Yep.
I'm skeptical, cautious, hesitant. But someone, I think it was Preston Smiles posted about you and the way that the frequencies helped him during COVID. And I was in the midst of a gut healing journey and trying to get a diagnosis to heal myself. I was incredibly tired and in pain and couldn't understand or wrap around what was happening. So I had just run thousands of dollars worth of functional medicine testing with my practitioner and started getting some answers. And that's when I came upon you and did a demo scan, and the demo scan showed me the same exact things that the free, mind you,
Yeah.
demo scan
Yeah.
produced the same information as the thousands. I mean, probably close to $5,000 worth of
Mhm.
testing. I mean, I was like leaving no stone unturned. Like, and I was in the position to do that financially, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
And I would have much preferred to have that $5,000 in my account
Uh-huh.
and had I known AOScan, but I think it needed to happen that way for me to know that like this wasn't random what was coming up on the scan. It also matched more traditional assessment methods
Yep.
and is available in the palm of my hand every day.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, you've used it in so many interesting ways too that have helped me. Like, because there's so much that you can do with frequencies and with the scans and with sending frequencies to, like you said, as practitioners, you can use it to send them to your clients, to groups of people at one time, to your office, to clear your energy after a session. But you've used it for travel as well, for flying. Like, it's just amazing. And I've loved being on this journey with you of not only like being the pioneers and experiencing what frequency technology can do and how to use it, but also how we share it with others and use it to raise the frequency of the planet. And I know we've mentioned this several times, but like this is the future of
Absolutely.
energy healing. And it's not like Keri is the first person who has said it matched my lab work exactly. Like we hear that all of the time.
Yes.
um okay, so I love chatting with you, Keri. I could chat with you forever, and I want to make sure that our listeners know how to connect with you. You have an incredible offering called your Abundance Activator membership. And why don't you explain a little bit about what that is and why people should join?
Sure. Well, as you can probably tell from the conversation, if you've listened this far, like none of us are having new problems or worries or anxieties. Like we're in this together. And I was doing individual sessions for years and started to notice that when I was doing groups and community healing around abundance, something else happened. Like something got unlocked. People who had been working with me privately got to break through new ceilings of what was possible for them by seeing other healers. Like we have a story that like healers don't make money, but then when you meet one who's making $300,000 a year, you're like, uh-oh, maybe that's not true. Maybe I can do more. Maybe when,
Mhm.
when people find out that someone else is working 3 days a week and making six figures, they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. So that's why I started doing this work in community. And that's what the Abundance Activator is. It's the place where healers and coaches and practitioners meet throughout the month using a variety of modalities: breath work, energy transmission, frequency healing, and my intuitive mentorship and coaching to really deepen their relationship with giving and receiving more harmoniously.
I love
And
that. Yep.
that's it. It's where the magic happens. It's like where we remember who we are, why we're here, and what's possible. And we cheer each other on. There's no competition. There's collaboration. There's connection. It's a place where you can brag when something really beautiful and amazing is happening. And it's a place where you can be vulnerable when you're on your knees, like wondering why something that you thought was for you isn't here yet. And we hold you there and inspire and invite you to hold on, hold the tension
Yes,
until it's
that's amazing. And if anybody can hold space for the full spectrum of
right.
celebrating life and also walking with you through your deepest, darkest challenges, it is absolutely Keri. She is a light being of
Mhm.
of all light beings. I love that you are in my space, that you are in my network, that we get to interact with each other, not just through AOScan, but just through life. I would love to meet you in person someday. I think we need to set that
That's
up.
going to happen. It's
But thank
happening.
you. Yes, thank you so much for everything that you shared on this episode today. I am so grateful for you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, and excited to meet some of your community of listeners.
Yes, absolutely. So, if you are looking to connect with Keri, if you want to learn more about all of the offerings that she shared on today's episode, be sure to check out the show notes or the description below. I so enjoyed my conversation with Keri today, and I hope you did too. One of the best ways to help other people find my podcast is to leave a review wherever you are listening. I would truly appreciate it. And if you don't have time for a review, then please like, share, and pass this episode on to someone else who might enjoy it so that we can all discover a new dimension of wellness together.